Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. Good to be with you. I'm Don Hudson. Up first, we continue our conversation on Amendment 2 as early voting begins to wind down. Now, Amendment 2 is on the ballot for the city of Knoxville and the residents there. If passed, it would essentially make all city council seats at large. Some people support it, others do not. State Representative Sam McKenzie and local civil rights leader Theodis Robinson stand on opposite sides of this particular issue. McKenzie opposes Amendment 2 because he believes it will weaken the strength of black and minority voting. Robinson, however, argues that Knoxville is capable of and will continue to support black candidates and that the majority of city council should answer to all voters. Let's hear from each of them, beginning with McKenzie.
What this amendment would do, if passed, would be to set us back 50 years as a community. It would be extremely hard for us to do business the way that we have in the past in terms of having a diverse city council. We're extremely diverse now, but what this amendment would do was to cause a lot of outside money to come in.
Vote your hopes, not your fears. The thing is, we do not need a city council that is not accountable. And everybody in the city, regardless of where you live, if you live north, south, east, or west, or downtown like I do, if this amendment is voted down, we will be saddled with a city council that is not accountable to any of us.
All right, now that we've heard from them, join us today to discuss this political issue. Of course, our political pundits, Shelley Breeden, Craig Griffith, Michael Covington, all here, in no particular order, I guess, but ladies first. We'll just start in the middle. First off, you just heard from two, people that are really up on the political scene here in our area with two very, very different thoughts on this. Your thoughts about that there's such a wide divide?
I mean, I understand what they're both saying, and I think they both have very valid points. I tend to agree with Sam McKenzie that I don't like the fact that it's going to be basically at-large seats citywide. I think it's going to diminish the number of people who are going to come out and run for those races, because suddenly you have to raise more money, you have to attract more voters. It's going to have more special interests can easier come into the race. I understand what he's saying. You're not going to have the historically black district voting for one representative. Whoever that representative is now has to win the support citywide, and that's a lot harder to do. But I understand as well, on the other side, then they're accountable to all the city voters. I get that, but that's not how we elect our state house. That's not how we elect the U.S. Congress. You have your representative from where you live, right, and the city is a smaller version of that, and to me it should remain in districts. I think the language is a little weird in the amendment itself. It talks about regions versus districts, but essentially it's taking away the districts, and they still have to live there, but you've got to win the support citywide.
And Michael, you think that Sam and Theo being so different, having such a different opinion on this, does that surprise you or expected?
I don't know that it surprises me. I know that I find the argument that the yes side is making is just total nonsense. If you look at a snapshot of today's election results, it shows that Eternal Life Harvest, Love Kitchen, they had 3,127 votes. The sum total of the votes at the other three larger polling places that encompass districts 2, 3, 4, and 5, if the referendum passes, yes, voters in District 6 may never, ever influence who represents them again, because in the primary and the general election, 30,000 votes are going to be going up against their 3,127, and they're going to lose each and every time. And it's about the numbers, and numbers don't lie. It's the people that are lying, but the numbers don't lie. If this passes, District 6 voters in particular, I don't know the other districts as well, but District 6 voters may never, ever influence who represents them again. They'll vote, but the numbers, Downtown West, Expo Center, New Harvest, that group of voters represent districts. Most of that is 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those will be the votes that will decide the District 6 representative. I don't know how the other districts flesh out. District 1 may be a little different, but District 6 will be disenfranchised by the passing of this referendum, and the numbers don't lie.
Craig, your thoughts on this?
you know, I worked for the city for 16 years, and I fielded tons of complaints about garbage collection, brush collection, the homeless issues, police issues, and never once did I field a complaint about the way the elections are run. So we had a system that was working. No one was complaining about it until a representative, Helene Davis, who doesn't live in the city, doesn't vote in the city, thought it would help Republicans. So she took a bill to the supermajority in Nashville and had it pass. Let's put us in the middle of this mess. And for no reason other than she felt that it was going to be a way to elect more Republicans to city council. And if you look at the makeup of the city council...
Is that how it'll play out?
No, not in any way, shape, or form. So I think that, you know, this was an example of a bill chasing a problem. And so now we get to where we are today, and we have to vote because it was passed by the legislature in Nashville. And I might point out that every candidate now in the general election runs citywide already. The 6th district candidate, all the candidates run citywide because that's the way the bill is set up. In addition, that's the way the system's set up. In addition to the at-large candidates that run citywide. So in essence, in the general election, you know, the amendment doesn't really change anything. It has to do more with the primary. So you know, I think it's not, you know, a great. It reflects more the way the pattern that we have now than any other, you know, than voting no and going to the strict district system.
Michael, you were wanting to...
Every single proponent of this referendum makes reference to having influence over all of the city council versus only having influence in your own district. And that is the biggest nonsense I have ever heard in my life. Why? Because the city council meets twice a month. If you want to influence all 9 city council people, show up at 5:30. They're all there. They're all milling around. Talk to each and every one. Don't sit at home and make 9 phone calls. Go to the city county building. Talk to individual city council persons. You don't need to vote for them to influence them. All you need to do is be a city resident and a voter. You have the same influence over them as you would if you voted for them.
So for the last 70 years, no one's had
The last 70 years don't matter. Yeah, We're talking about 2024.
Has there not been representation
It does
then?
not matter. You keep talking about 70 years ago. It does not matter. We're talking about today, and District 6 will be disenfranchised by this forever.
No more so than it is for the last 70 years.
Forget about the last 70 years. The last 70 years are not relevant.
Give us some evidence to how they were
The
disenfranchised
last 70 years are
system.
not relevant to this discussion. The only thing that's relevant is voters today in 2024.
But what you're saying, Craig, is in the general election won't change, but what changes is who is on the ballot for the general election. And I think that's the problem, is that the district is not choosing who is on the ballot for the citywide general election. And that's what, to me, this amendment is a major change. And I tend to agree with Michael. It's going to disenfranchise voters.
Well, I'm going to let you go ahead because...
Well, you know, again, history has shown that that's not the case. So, you know, why it's going to be different next year under any other system is beyond me.
Let's get into the part about the people going to the polls. We talked to Chris Davis with the election administrator, and he said people who don't have this issue on the ballot were in and out. They 1 minute they were voting. Other people were taking a long time and asking questions and calling people because they don't understand the language of the bill. Do you think that people know what they're really voting for when they read this?
No, they do not.
A lawyer drafted that. A lawyer approved it, and a lawyer is giving you the perspective on it. And all 3 of those were lawyers. Okay. The reason the language is convoluted is because it's designed to mislead.
Yes, it's designed to say this is to get people to vote yes on it.
Right.
But yes, I've had numerous people contact me and say, "What is this?" You know, as lawyers, people in my office, we get contacted by friends and family saying, "What is this amendment to?" And it's generated a lot of conversation. And I don't think people understand it. I think a lot of people have no idea what they're voting for and what it realistically means and practically means.
Do you think that the majority, when they go to vote, that the majority of people that have to vote or should vote on this or can vote on it will actually know what they're voting on instead of just checking a box? No.
I don't think they know.
No. The people the proponents of it are talking about how great the influence will be, but you never hear them talk numbers. And they don't talk numbers because the numbers do not support the argument that they're making. The voters in District 6 do not vote at the rate, at the volume that the other districts do. And so they will be selecting the District 6 representative. That's just the bottom line.
Okay. And that's never happened in history.
And those
So,
are two
you know, I don't understand why it'll happen that way
Maybe-
under this system.
And maybe one place we can agree, there is also Amendment number 1 that's on that. And that amendment, does anyone care to explain what it is?
Well, it just moves the 5th council district onto the same schedule as the rest of the city council.
Getting all the city council
And,
people lined up on the same election. Do you think everyone will vote on that in the right way?
What is the right way?
Or the right or wrong way?
It's just there to mislead people and to provide a distraction for referendum number 2. They could have done this in the last election, the last city election. They chose to do it now because it can now be a companion to the misleading referendum 2.
I guess I should have reworded that differently. Shouldn't we get all the city council members voting at the same time?
Every 5th.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, this makes sense. Amendment 1's easy. Amendment 2.
More interesting
Every 5th council district representative has wanted to be on the election with the other representatives. They didn't want to be out like the thumb in this election without everything.
The most interesting thing is the story about why it happened in the first place. There was a candidate who did not want to have to run again because she got appointed. Somehow she got in the seat, and so they changed it so that she wouldn't have to run for another 4 years.
Well, apparently they're correcting that. So that is one which is easy to understand, too. You might want to talk about it, look it up, get the information before you go out and vote. As you just heard here, a lot of different opinions. All right, much more to come on Tennessee This Week, including how Senator Marsha Blackburn's campaign was targeted by Chinese influencers, her response, and Gloria Johnson weighs in as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. This week, we learned that Senator Marsha Blackburn's campaign targeted by Chinese influence operations. Microsoft saying that Chinese sources have gone after several Republican candidates and members of Congress who have publicly denounced a communist country, including Blackburn, who certainly has done that. Now, despite this, Blackburn says nothing will deter her from breaking China to save America, as she's doing here in this political ad. Gloria Johnson's campaign saying it condemns foreign interference in any election when they were asked to weigh in on this. So let's discuss this issue. I mean, first off, we could talk about her political ad, which I guess you could see why China doesn't like it. She's breaking plates with the Chinese symbol on it, in case you didn't see that. Are you surprised, Craig, that China, and that it's verified by Microsoft, is trying to influence our elections and Tennessee, our Tennessee representatives?
Well, no, I'm not surprised China is trying to influence the election. China, Russia, Iran are all trying to do it. And, you know, Marsha Blackburn is an outspoken opponent of the CCP, as she calls it, the Communist Party of China. So it's not surprising she was the target. But if you also read the fine print of the Microsoft report, the influencer garnered very little attention.
Right, he didn't get a lot of traction.
Didn't get a lot of traction. Right. So, you know, are these effective influencers? And should Marsha continue her aggressive anti-China platform? You know, I think that she should, because China is our biggest threat. You know, China probably has a 200-year plan for global economic domination. You know, we're lucky if we have a 24-hour plan. So there needs to be a concerted effort to have the problems that the Chinese military and economy present to the United States addressed.
And Shelley, should both sides of the aisle, should this be an easy thing for them to get behind it, to say, hey, we got to stand up to this stuff?
It should be easy. Yeah. I thought it would have been easy in the last presidential election to say that about Russia, but it turned out not to be so easy to say that. I don't know that China's a different story, but I am happy that Marsha Blackburn and Gloria Johnson both are saying, hey, we can't have this. It's not proper in any election. It's not surprising, like Craig said. We saw it from Russia. We saw it from Iran. We're going to see it from China. We're going to see it from those nation states that don't like the United States. And they're trying to separate our country. They're trying to pit us against each other. And to a degree, they've been successful in the past. China's seen the success that I think Russia had. And they're trying to emulate that and go after candidates like Marsha Blackburn or other candidates. But again, I don't think they got the traction that Russia saw in the last election.
Right. Obviously, we should still be concerned. It's just like saying, well, they didn't get traction, but they're trying. Michael, your thoughts on the fact that they are going after conservative and Republican candidates? Those are the only ones that Microsoft said they were going after.
I'm wondering, does it matter in a state like Tennessee? Gloria Johnson is not going to offer Marsha Blackburn any challenge on election
even
days.
Outside of Tennessee.
Well, no, outside of Tennessee, maybe. But I would like to think that China has better insight into who they have an opportunity to influence. Marsha Blackburn is not one of those candidates. For one, she's only,
Well,
if 5 really tall people stood around her, you wouldn't see her. But she's very, very prominent in the state of Tennessee. Why waste the time here? All they've done is given Marsha Blackburn a platform, which she effectively used. And I hope that any other candidate that is besieged by Chinese influence does the same thing. Use it as an opportunity to convey a message and keep it moving.
and how concerned should we be? Like you said, Craig, it's not just China. Several foreign countries are trying to influence our elections if they just want to cause chaos, but also if they're trying to get certain candidates elected that might benefit them.
Well, remember, a lot of our elections now are really close.
Right. Yes.
Using the current presidential election, it seems to be tied. And in the swing states, they won't even venture a prediction because the data is in. But the question is, in those states, running an influence operation that you only need to swing 10,000, 5,000 votes could be the difference between electing one person A or person B to the White House. So, like Michael says, it doesn't make much sense in Tennessee, but nationally speaking, if you influence enough targeted races to where, you can flip a swing state, it'll be successful.
I wonder if it seems like a good idea because our elections seem as though they can be influenced effectively. And if that's the case, then we need to tighten our elections up. And I know the Voting Rights Act is a very important part of making sure that every American is enfranchised in the process. But we've got to do a better job nationwide of making sure that our elections are sound.
Well, but it's different this year. This is supposedly the presidential campaign of the podcast. Right. Everyone seems to want to get on everyone's favorite podcast, and that's a method of electioneering now. So, again, you have some podcasters that are influenced by different people, and you don't know who they're influenced by. So it's just, I think, indicative of changing the way people are campaigning in the 21st century. Right. And they're going to use every method that they have to get their candidate out there, and that makes it more susceptible, I think, to foreign influence.
But I don't think the foreign influence is at the ballot box. Like, I don't think our elections are unsafe at the ballot box. No. I think this is all targeted with deep fake videos, with AI-generated things that are being circulated on social media and around the internet to make people think that one candidate or the other has said something that they simply didn't say. We're seeing that those videos about Kamala Harris saying things that she certainly didn't say.
Or shooting a rhino.
Correct. Or, the Taylor Swift stuff from the Trump campaign. There's just fake videos, and with AI, it's advanced so far, it's hard to tell what's true and what's not. I don't have any doubt about our ballot box being secure. I don't. It's the influence of the people believing what they see on the internet, and I don't know how we stop that at this point.
Do you think they're secure? And we've had some issues here and there. Are they secure enough to say we got all these early votes, that every one of these votes does get counted, no matter where it is, no matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican in charge of that election office? We think that we are.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. In 62 courts back in 2020 said that no, there was no election interference or fraud. So,
and a lot of that was Republican judges looking at it and saying that there was no claim. Like, they didn't even have the evidence to get past a motion to dismiss, which is a very low threshold in the court system. There was no evidence brought forward that the ballot box itself is unsafe in our country. No. It's the influence of the people going to the ballot box.
Michael, your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd like to think that our ballot boxes are safe, but I've been an election chief judge, and I know elections can be rigged. I know it can be done. If you have the right amount of money and time, you can fix any election, including a national election, and there's evidence to support that. I think Shelley's right. I think that it's an influence issue, and all I can come up with is that we need trusted sources for information, and we can't trust our sources to always give us the true information that they have. Right. Sometimes I think media outlets have truth that they're not sharing, but they're giving us a narrative that supports an ideology, and it's problematic, and voters are misled.
And where is the evidence of being able to buy an election other than $1 million voter? I'm going to give you $1 million.
You don't have the evidence. I just said I was an election chief, so I know it can be done,
Well,
and I know because of my personal experience.
Well,
It's just because you don't have that personal experience doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Whether or not it is or isn't, there's a lot of people that still get concerned when you see people like putting newspapers over windows and, you know, for a few hours. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It's like, hey, what are you doing? We should be able to see everything. Everyone should be able to see everything it's doing so they make sure they get counted right. I guess that's where some people are coming from.
Even you know, I've been involved in a lot of elections, and even, you know, the walking around money that goes around out in these individual districts, you know, I've rarely seen it influence an election. And, you know, can it be bought? You know, person's votes can be bought, but I don't know that it can be bought.
My guess is that just a lot of stuff you don't know.
We'll keep talking about it during the break, but
you
still
can't
to come
prove
on Tennessee This Week. It has been 1 month since Helene hit, and we want to discuss some of the ongoing recovery efforts, both locally and from the federal government, right after this. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Sunday, October 27th, marks 1 month since Helene wreaked just havoc on East Tennessee and western North Carolina, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the people who lost lives then. Since then, the National Guard, TDOT, first responders, and volunteers have been hard at work cleaning up debris, making repairs, but we are certainly not out of the woods. While crews were able to reopen one lane in each direction of I-40 near the Tennessee state line to local traffic, as well as repair some local roads, other bridges and roads, like a stretch of I-26, in Unicoi County, are just gone, and they haven't been replaced. Our panel now here to talk about the recovery efforts and everything people did. And to that point, we just had a bridge fall like 2 days ago. Another bridge fell. It was a trestle. It was a train trestle, but here we are. Here we are weeks after, and all of a sudden, just boom, it collapsed, which also closed down some roads. I'm curious because there's been a lot of finger pointing, been a few incidents. Your feeling about the response, and let's start with Tennessee and the local people responding to this emergency, and then we'll talk about the federal government. But the local response to helping people out.
Well, Governor Lee has put up this $100 million loan program to get local governments back on track on getting the water plants and sewer plants and things like that back online as soon as possible, which is a good thing. Of course, I question, why is it a loan? Why don't they just give it to the government so they can do what they need to do and not wait and use federal monies for other processes that need to be done? So, I mean, I have no fault with the Tennessee response. Becky Massey, Senator Massey, who's chair of the Transportation Committee in the legislature, has been on the scene and has vowed, to do every effort that she can to make sure things are repaired as soon as they can. But, you're talking about millions and probably billions of dollars of repairs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had just a story a couple days ago on WATE 6, just 2 cities saying, well, probably going to be $15 million for us, and then the other city saying $45 million to fix everything they need to fix as well. But again, your response to the response, I guess.
I was going to say, as far as local Tennesseans go, the everyday people, I'm amazed at our community. It has just been so heartwarming to see. You had Dolly Parton come out. You had communities donate so much water to where some of the communities are saying we have enough water.
Right.
I'm with Craig. I don't know why Governor Lee has this loan. We have rainy day fund. To me, that should be used. This was definitely a rainy day. I'm going to say why we're not using some of that. As far as the federal government, we were talking off air, Tennessee has to assess what has to be done for the road work. My husband is in road building, very familiar with that industry. It's going to take a lot of planning to figure out how they're going to build back some of this, take bids from jobs. Is it going to be a design build job? Is the state going to do the plans to put all that together to put out for bid, to get bids, and figure out how much that's going to be? I think once Tennessee comes up with that, then the federal government's going to fund it. But Tennessee's been on that. TDOT was having meetings immediately, trying to assess which roads, which bridges, and trying to assess the other bridges as for their safety at the current time.
Right. And we have about 30 seconds left, Mike, but your reaction to the amazing response locally and whether the federal government has stepped up enough.
I think the response has been phenomenal. I'd like for it to continue. I'd like for folks to continue to donate and contribute. The federal government probably has made some mistakes. Florida is an expert at dealing with this kind of thing. Tennessee, North Carolina, not so much. We just need to learn from this and get better.
Right, and hopefully we will. I want to thank all 3 of you for being here, for the spirited conversation, and I want to thank everyone at home for watching, and we'll see you next week on Tennessee This Week. Take care. Have a great day.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Next Star Broadcasting.